Hello and welcome to CTD 202, Unit 1, Lesson 3, Introduction to Dyes. In Lessons 1 and 2, preparatory process like fabric bleaching and various classes of dyes that are used to give colors to the fabric were described. In this lesson, we will describe the various methods of dyeing that are used to give color to the fabric. Objective of today's class would be, after going through this class, you will be able to learn about the historical background of dyes, methods of dyeing, process used for dyeing, how further value is added to dyed fabrics. Introduction. Color plays an important role in our choice of a fabric. In the market, fabrics with a variety of colors and shades are available. Dyeing is usually carried out by immersing textile materials in an aqueous solution of the dye called dye liquor. Normally, the dye liquor consists of dye, water, and some auxiliaries like leveling agents, swelling agents, anti-foaming agents, wetting agents, dispersing agents, etc. The addition of electrolytes increase the rate of dye pickup by the fiber. Heat may sometimes be applied to remove the effectiveness of dyeing. Historical background. The primitive way of ornamentation of textiles was to use natural products like leaves, flowers, or sticks. These were stuck into the fabric with albumin or clotted blood. The second method was to rub crushed pigments into cloth. These proved to be fast to light, but not fast to water or to wear. The demand for permanently fixed colors stimulated experiments. Crushed fruit berries were boiled to impart color to the fabric, but this did not result in fast color. Sun rays were used to bleach. Fire and smoke gave scorching effects. Finally, the natural dyes were discovered, which actually colored the fabrics by diffusing into them, rather than not just providing a surface coating over them. Dyeing has been a very ancient art, the first recorded account being during the Bronze Age in Europe. This first use of blue dye indigo obtained from the leaves of a plant called woad, beloved by the ancient Britons, may have originated in Palestine, where it was found growing wild. The most famous and highly prized color down the ages was Tyrant purple, a dye obtained from certain shellfish. Its use persisted through the Middle Ages, and because of the high cost of collection, it was a mark of nobility. By the 11th century, Florence became the center of dyeing industry. The dye most commonly used at this time was indigo and later on saffron. The history of dyeing took a new turn in 1856, the year in which Perkin discovered Mauveine. During the period before this, lasting many thousands of years, all the dyes used came from natural sources. The new era that started in the dye manufacturing industry after 1856 has resulted in several thousand synthetic dyes, but only those dyes which are easy to apply and which gives shade of satisfactory fastness are converted into commercial production. Now, what was the primitive way of applying color to the textiles? I repeat, what was the primitive way of applying color to the textiles? Now, after you have written this question, let us resume with our class. Methods of dyeing. There are 6 main methods of dyeing and are briefly described. First, stock dyeing. Stock dyeing refers to dyeing staple fibers before they are spun. The old method consists of transferring the stock of packed fibers from the bale into large vats and circulating dye liquor through the mass of fiber at elevated temperatures. The new method, bale dyeing, which is applicable to wool and all types of man-made fibers, is that of splitting the bale covering on all 6 sides, placing the entire bale in a specially designed machine. The straps need to be removed and then forcing the dye liquor through the bale of fibers. This later method obviously saves time and cost. Cotton fibers are not dyed by this method. Second, top dyeing. One step nearer to the finished yarn than stock dyeing is what is called top dyeing in the worsted industry. top refers to wool that has been combed to take out the fibers and then delivered from the combs in a rope-like form about 3 centimeters thick. The top is wound on perforated spools and the dye liquor is circulated through the perforations of the spool. Very even dyeing is possible with this method. Third, yarn dyeing. When dyeing is done after the fiber has been spun into yarn, it is referred to as yarn dyeing. There are several methods of yarn dyeing. The purpose is to have the dye stuff penetrated to the fibers in the core of the yarn, this being similar to penetration of the fiber in stock dyeing. Cloth made of dyed yarn is called yarn dyed. Yarn dyed fabrics are usually deeper and richer in color. The primary reason for dyeing in the yarn form is to create interesting checks, stripes, etc. with different colored yarns to the weaving process. Piece dyeing. The great bulk of dyed fabrics is dyed by this method. Piece dyeing is thoroughly satisfactory as regards levelness, penetration, and overall fastness, assuming that proper dyes have been used. Fabric may be piece dyed whether it is composed of one kind of fiber or yarn or of blends of different fibers or combinations of different yarns. When the fabric is made of one kind of fiber or yarn, then dyeing is relatively uncomplicated because only one appropriate dye is used. However, when the fabric contains a blend of fibers or combinations of different yarns, then special procedures are required which employ different dyes that are specific for the particular fibers used. These procedures are called union dyeing and cross dyeing. Dope dyeing. During the production of man-made fibers, a great deal of time and money can be saved if the dye is added to the solution before it is shaped by passing through the spinners into filaments. This method also gives a greater degree of color fastness. A process called solution pigmenting or dope dyeing has been used for man-made fibers ranging from rayon to glass fibers. Effective results have been obtained. The pigment colors are the fastest known. They are to be preferred when fastness to almost any known factor is important. It may be noted that the term dyeing used here is a misleading term as the dye is not actually entering the fiber. Garment dyeing. Certain kinds of non-tailored apparel such as hosiery and sweaters can be dyed as completed garments because they are each made of single component and will not be readily distorted. A number of garments are loosely packed into a large nylon net bag. The bags are then put into a paddle dyer with a tube with a motor driven paddle that agitates the dye bath. Garment dyeing is an economical method. It also reduces the risk of building an inventory that could be affected by changes in color fashion. The dyeing process. The dyeing process involves a dye formulation and selecting the appropriate dyeing conditions. These will be described as direct, wet, and reactive dyes for dyeing cotton. As a general guide, the amount of dye on the amount of material to be dyed should be: for light shades 0.5 to 1% dye, for medium shades 1% to 3%, and for dark shades greater than 3%. Direct dyes. Direct dyes are soluble in cold or warm water, and cotton can be easily dyed with them. Very bright and brilliant colored fabrics can be obtained, but their wash fastness is not good. Hence, only those products which do not need repeated washing should be made from fabrics dyed with direct dyes. And after filtering, it is placed in a vessel which contains a small quantity of water. The dye dissolves on stirring, and more water is added to ensure that the fabric is completely immersed in it. The fabric to be dyed is then introduced into the dye bath. After 15 to 20 minutes, 20 to 30 grams per liter of sodium chloride, which is also known as common salt, is added and stirred with a wooden stick for about 30 minutes. After this, the fabric is removed and washed with cold water before drying. Wet dyes. Wet dyes are very fast, and clothes that require frequent washing should therefore be dyed with wet dyes. Wet dyes are insoluble in water. To make it soluble, 25 grams of dye is taken in a vessel, and water at a temperature of 50 to 60 degrees Celsius is added to it. To this is added 50 grams of liquid caustic soda. Finally, 50 grams of sodium hydrosulfite is very slowly added to the mixture, taking care to stir it with a wooden stick. The dye dissolves in the solution with a change in color. After 10 to 15 minutes, the filtering solution is poured into the dyeing vessel, in which water at 60 to 70 degrees Celsius and 75 to 100 grams of caustic soda has already been placed earlier. Another 30 to 50 grams of hydrosulfite is added to this dye bath. The goods to be dyed, yarn or fabric are then immersed in this dye bath and moved around with the help of a wooden stick in the bath. After every 15 to 20 minutes, 15 to 20 grams of hydrosulfide should be added to the bath, and this may be repeated 2 to 3 times. The goods may be removed after 1 hour of dyeing and then washed a few times in cold water. They then may be kept for drying in the open, where oxidation takes place over a period of time. To accelerate oxidation, they may be treated with hydrogen peroxide or sodium perborate and acetic acid. Finally, the dyed goods may be given a treatment and then washed in hot water and cold water, followed by drying. Reactive dyes. Reactive dyes are fast, and fabrics dyed in them, particularly mercerized cotton fabrics, can have bright and brilliant colors. They are available both for cold dyeing and hot dyeing. For dyeing cottons, linens, and viscose rayon, the following dyeing process is recommended. Dissolve the dye, about 10 grams, in half a liter of warm water and stir. In a separate container, dissolve the common salt, 4 tablespoons, and soda ash, 15 to 20 grams per liter, in half a liter of water and stir. The sample to be dyed, which has undergone preparatory processes, is wetted, and when it is ready for dyeing, mix the 2 solutions together in a dye bath and dip the material in the bath, moving the fabric constantly for the first 10 minutes and then intermittently the rest of the dyeing time, which may be 1 hour or more. The dyeing may be carried out at a higher temperature, up to 70 degrees Celsius, to get better color yield with some of the dyes. Once the dyeing is over, the fabric is taken out and rinsed thoroughly. Then the fabric may be subjected to soaping, washing, and drying. Value addition. Dyeing fabrics result in significant value addition. We can create wonderful effects by dyeing the textile material in different colors. After dyeing, we can enhance the ornamentation of the dyed textile, adding on it some extra work like a little hand embroidery work, fabric painting with acrylic colors, bead work or machine embroidery, etc. Assignment. Dye any penetrated cotton fabric in 2 colors. The colors you are going to use would be golden yellow and red. For your home assignment, after you have dyed this fabric, please Embellish the dyed fabric by doing some embroidery or fabric painting work. Summing up. To sum up, in this lesson, we first trace the historical background of dyeing. The different methods of dyeing were then considered. Finally, the dyeing procedures for direct, wet, and reactive dyes were described. Now, I would like you to answer some very simple questions. Define the following: stock dyeing, garment dyeing, union dyeing, piece dyeing, and yarn dyeing. Second, trace the historical background of dyeing. Trace the historical background of dyeing. Which dyeing method is used for dyeing fabrics in small batches? Which dyeing method is used for dyeing fabrics in small batches? Fourth question: how can we add value to a dyed fabric? How can we add value to a dyed fabric? I hope you all have understood a very simple technique of dyeing, and I would request all of you to experiment few possibilities on your own and then do value addition. Thank you.
you.